Welcome back, everybody, to Sports Central. Neal, Duncan alongside John Oney, and this first segment brought to us by the Holiday Inn in Lakeland. And John, is this your first time on the show?
First timer today. I'm excited.
We have high standards for you.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, it's all written down. I'm sure.
Okay, just don't mess it up, right?
As long as I'm not adequate.
That's wow.
It's super.
Well, I'm very excited about this first segment. I know you are too. You're a dog lover, and a great story coming out of the Lakeland Police Department. Another championship for them, and we have Officer Ted Sealey here with us, and Bruno. Officer Sealey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us about Bruno and what you guys have been up to here recently.
Well, Bruno is a German Shepherd. He was imported through police service dogs in Oxford, Florida, and he's from Budapest, Hungary. So I got Bruno when he was approximately about 2.5 years of age, and I've had him for the last 3 years.
Well, let's talk about a little bit, how does a dog from Hungary end up in Lakeland, and what is some of the training process that goes on, and then we'll go into the competitions you guys have entered into.
Yes, sir. They come in, we import all our dogs from Europe due to the breeding and genetics that we get out of Europe. Bruno was selected for his hunt drive, his obedience, and his ability to do the performance that we require as a street dog, which we call as a police dog, and then going into the training for the United States Police K-9 Association, which we certify under, which is entailed in obedience, agility, search work, and apprehension work.
Interesting. Now, I heard you speaking a little bit to him. Most of the commands are in a foreign language, or are they in English? How's that?
Everything that is spoken to Bruno is in Hungarian. Because he's from Hungary, so that's the language he understands. So when I get the dogs in, I just learn their language. It's much easier on them, and it makes for an easy transition for them to come from the European side of the house to over here in the United States.
Well, he's decided he wants to
he's made a new friend over there.
He's made a new friend, yeah, absolutely. Well, we're here to talk about the National Police K-9 Championships, and it's something that you competed in with Bruno. First of all, what is the USPCA, and what does it entail?
The USPCA it's the United States Police K-9 Association. It's an organization that was started in the early 80s that is based on the fundamentals that the dogs have to be, obedience being the basic fundamental. Our dogs have to be obedient, they have to be agile to jump over things, they have to perform certain tactics to search for evidence, and they also do suspect searches, and then they do criminal apprehension. Bruno currently holds 2 consecutive years as the state champion in Florida, and now this was his second title as a national champion for the Nationals of the USPCA.
Fantastic.
That's excellent. So in the Nationals, you talked about a little bit about their agility and what they need to do, but tell us about a little bit of the competitions, the individual competitions that Bruno might see.
The competition, the first day is obedience. We go out and we do a heeling phase, we do a walking phase, and distance control. And those are based on control of the dog. The dog is not on lead at any time. He has to be by your side, and they're based on the distance control. You have to do it by voice and by hand. And then there's a point in the halfway where you have to either stop your dog by hand or voice in either a sit down or a stand. And then we go into the agility phase where we have them jumping over 6-foot walls, a 6-foot broad jump, and everything is done off lead. You can't touch the dog. Once the trial begins and the lead is taken away, the dog has to go through all the exercises, and you have to maintain control of the dog.
How many groups from across the country are competing in events like this? And because you said 2 times consecutive in the state championships?
Yes, sir. He's won 2 state championships. Mm-hmm. We have to compete at a state level first.
Okay.
Prior to qualify for the Nationals. He actually, his first trial in Alabama, he scored a 697 out of 700. It's the highest points ever obtained by a police dog in our certifications.
Wow.
And then he has done that 2 years in a row to win the state title and then to the national title. But you can't do it without the team. With having the other team members there, you have to have that. It's not just Bruno and I, it's a whole complex of the team issue, because we have people that are doing the decoy work, which are taking the bites from your dog, people that are out there helping you with article search and suspect search. Without a team, you're nobody.
Wow. So the championships, where were they located? I know you just got back. This is something that we're celebrating at this point. So where were the championships held this year?
This was in Charles County, Maryland, just outside of D.C. The Charles County, Maryland Sheriff's Office hosted the trial, and we were up there from September 29th till October the 4th.
Oh, wow. What kind of preparation? Obviously, the training that is done for the dog is congruent with what you're needing the dog to do on the job. So I'm assuming there's more training than what just is required in your day-to-day.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
His training, he is trained actually a minimum of 2 hours a day. He is trained. He does not get to eat out of a bowl like a typical dog. He just doesn't get food put on the floor. He has to work for his food. When he completes a task, then he gets fed. But our training, closer to the trial, it goes anywhere from 2 hours a day to 6 hours to 8 hours. Depending on, if you're training all together, as all 9 of us are together, it kind of spans out more to 8 hours because you have so many dogs to train.
Very interesting. So, yeah, I know Bruno is sitting over there playing with his stick. He's got one stick that he plays with, and,
yes, sir.
And he found this stick and he's had it for some time. Can you do any demonstrations with him on the camera? I mean, is that something we can?
We can. We can have him do things. Hosed. Labos. Erish. Labos. Ot. Ul, Fetsik, Labos. And that's what he's working for. Brutzy.
He's like, I'm out.
Yeah, he's ready to take a run. That's pretty cool.
And that's there was the obedience is the distance control, where you have to speak to him by voice, but he also has to do things by hand. And everything that he's doing, why he's working like that for me, is for the stick. That is his reward. That is his ultimate goal, is to get that stick back in his mouth.
Well, let's talk about how that translates to his day job.
Yes, sir.
Because obviously he's a national champion, a state champion. That's great for Lakeland and other communities, because I know when big things happen,
yes,
all the departments are working together. So let's talk about how he translates that into his day job and what that means to the citizens of Lakeland.
The good thing about all of this is, like we talk about the obedience and the control work that I've been hitting on, out there on the street, he has to have that obedience. Just the other day we had a possible shooting call, and I had to get him out of the car, and I had to put him down behind cover, but I had to go someplace else. And sometimes we need them to stay in a position like you're showing, or he's just sitting here. He's just laying down. And on his day-to-day basis, there may be some times where I don't want the bad guy to know where he's at or where I'm at, so I may have to speak to him. And that's why we do the distance control by hand and by voice. There's certain calls that we may go out there. We don't want the bad guy to know where we're at, and give up our place and where we're doing and everything.
And correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times when you guys are going and tracking, you also usually have an officer that's covering you guys because the dog needs cover when you guys are searching out. There takes some obedience with that, as well as being around, because you're not around the same officers all the time that are covering you, right?
Yes, sir. We usually, what we try to do is, because we work on a 12-hour shift and we work with the same group of guys, we try to train with different people. But like you said, sometimes the officers aren't there. With my dogs, as long as my dog sees you with me and you come out on a track or a building search, he'll search with you just as he will with me. But it takes obedience and discipline for the dog to understand that when we're tracking, because my hands are on the leash and my eyes are watching the dog. So as my cover officer, it's your responsibility to keep everything, you're the one that has the gun out and everything like that, keeping my safety and his. But with the obedience and the discipline, yes, he has to understand that you're not the bad guy. You're not the one we're looking for.
Yeah. So in the event that you guys do get separated, will he take instruction, or will he obey other officers?
He won't take instruction from them, and he really won't go and do the things that he will do for me. They're trained to just with the one person to go off of our commands and everything. But he's also not a dog that's just going to come back and bite somebody else.
Yeah.
Our agency, we do a lot of training. Our dogs are very disciplined dogs. The whole unit as a whole has very disciplined dogs. And so our dogs have to be able to go into buildings and do different things with multiple officers in there, and we train for that.
I've done some ride-alongs with the Sheriff's Department with Officer Schaub and his K-9 unit, and I know that it's a labor of love sometimes, because you guys have really got to maintain them at a high level, because there's being a personal pet owner, and then the level in which you need to maintain this, because it's an officer of the law.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the home life, if you will, of Bruno.
Bruno, actually, it's nice. All my dogs, it's kind of, they're like light switches. they start to see the overhead wires, the different trees and stuff, and they get used to the home life. That you can see, it's almost like how our shoulders relax when we get into a comfortable environment. You can see it on the dog. They relax. They get home and they become a pet.
Right.
They become part of your family. And one of the hardest things probably to be a canine handler is to take that love that you have for that dog when he's at home and he's the pet, he's loving on the kids and the wife and the family and everything like that. And then you got to understand that he's also a tool and he has to go to work, and sometimes you're going to have to put him in harm's way. And so the bond that you have, because I spend 365 days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with that dog. He's not something that just gets put in the kennel. And I take them on vacations with me. I try to treat them just like a family member when they're at home.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We talked before the show. You see a beautiful dog like this, and you know his capabilities. You know he's a dog that could injure you.
Yes.
And it's just hard for as a lay person to kind of walk up to this dog and pet him like you would your own. So I know I see you guys out all the time at community events, and you see the little kids who are, you know, hugging and tugging on these dogs, but at the same time, at any moment, they need to be able to jump in and become work dogs again.
Yes.
So.
And then they do it very well. As you can see, he's real happy over here and everything like that, but they do it well.
How long would a dog like Bruno work for the force, and how long can he compete in a competition like he's recently won?
We usually work him till about 8 years old. It depends, because of the stress that we put on them with all the agility and tracking and jumping over fences and going through houses like they do in their day-to-day service for the citizens. They start to get hip problems. They start to develop medical issues. So about 8 years old is probably a good age for them to start looking at retiring.
So he's got plenty of time to defend his titles.
He does. He's got about another 3 years, maybe a little bit more, depending on, because he, as you can see, he's very agile and he acts like a puppy, even at 5 years old. So. Well,
Officer Sealey, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate Bruno's time coming on as well. Congratulations to you and the whole Lakeland Police Force for having great K-9 unit like you do, and maybe we can host one of those events here in Polk County.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck, and thank you for all the protection that you provide us and all the citizens of Polk County.